Meantime, I want to introduce you to a former NFL player who has an interesting idea. Maybe the president, Colin Kaepernick, maybe should have a meeting to sort all of this out. Of course, he is former NFL player Chris Valletta. He has played with the New Orleans Saints and the Tennessee Titans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was an interesting idea, Chris, and I'm very happy to have you. You presaged it saying you understood where fans were coming from, writing in a column. This is why I will never advocate for a protest during the national anthem. Simply put, it's country before self, even when the country isn't exactly where it should be. So you recognize wide latitude there. But then you said that maybe the answer is in these two key players, that is the president and Colin Kaepernick, meeting. But what difference would it make at this stage, since both seem to be kind of locked in to their positions?
Well, I think that's precisely the point. Both are locked into their positions, but both have an extraordinary opportunity to demonstrate unity, which I think is what the country needs right now. I think if we stand and take a hard line and dig in our heels in saying that the players should stand during the national anthem, which I adamantly agree with, and leave it at that, I think we're doing ourselves and the country it's a grave mistake. I feel like our charge as Americans, as individuals, is to model what I believe athletes represent, which is being the best versions of themselves, constantly bettering your best, constantly improving. And as Americans who are faced with this type of issue, we can improve ourselves by understanding the other side and listening to the other side and not digging in our heels, but actually opening up our ears. And I think if we do that, particularly President Trump does that, I think it sends a very strong message of unity to the country, which is desperately needed right now.
But, Chris, you argue as well that, I'm paraphrasing here, but there's a certain understanding everyone stands to the national anthem. Obviously, a lot of your former colleagues and players disagree with that, and they didn't want to be and like to be backed into a corner. The president called them SOBs who should be fired if they don't go along with that. So, of course, it's been a rather chill will going on here. I can't see a middle ground on this, Chris. I mean, you know the players far better than I. But the reality is this is losing them ratings, money, and the players themselves must realize that. But rules are rules, right? A lot of them have these baked in, these rules that you stand with the national anthem. And some owners fear that if this rule is broken, however understanding they're going to try to be, what other rules will be broken down the road? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that's the biggest problem here is there really is no rule. And I'm very disappointed in the NFL for not taking a more firm stance in that position.
What is really the understanding right now? Please educate me on that, Chris, that you're supposed to be out on the field for the national anthem, right?
Commissioner Goodell put out a statement that says they feel that all players should stand during the national anthem. It wasn't an edict. It wasn't a mandate.
So
which
players
I think is
don't have that in their contract, Chris,
They do not.
Right?
They do not.
So the only thing written down is you be out on the field when the national anthem on. It doesn't say anything about standing, sitting, kneeling, whatever, right?
It doesn't. The meeting that was that happened in New York yesterday was centered on this idea of using the NFL platform to raise and actually make an impact on certain civic issues in local communities. The problem is the NFL platform is eroding. And it's eroding because our nationalism is eroding. And that's the biggest thing at stake here. What my fear is, where is this in 20 years? Do we no longer play the national anthem? This is unbelievable. 1.1 million Americans, soldiers, have died in defense of the freedoms we enjoy every single day. That freedom is celebrated by singing the national anthem. It is the one thing that affords us the right to protest in the first place. We should all stand shoulder to shoulder in reverent and respect for that fact. However, we should also understand each other's differences. And I feel like the two people in the pole positions, the President of the United States and Colin Kaepernick, who, right or wrong, like it or not, he's in the driver's seat of this national protest, could come together and sit down and just talk about it.
Well, do you think it was a mistake for the president to refer to players who don't stand with the national anthem as SOBs?
Well, you know, we all know President Trump has an exceptionally well-developed tongue when it comes to speaking to the media. I would say that, look, I firmly agree with his position that all players should stand during the national anthem. I think it is a national, I'll even use the word tragedy, because that's what this is all about. There are tragedies that happen 1.1 million times because that's the number of American soldiers who have died in defense.
I hear it so well, and I have great respect for you and your past and what you've done. It's been a remarkable career, by the way.
Thank you.
And you were on The Apprentice, so, I mean, you've covered it all. But I just don't see some players budging from that. To them, it's a point that cannot be compromised.
So we've got to talk about
Right?
action. We've got to talk about action. One of the greatest coaches I ever played for was R.C. Slocum, my head coach at Texas A&M.
Sure.
He used to tell us all the time, what you can put off to tomorrow, do today.
Well, one
What
of
you
the
can do
options,
today,
Chris,
do it
as you
now.
know, is the NFL is pursuing addressing some of these inadequacies and unfairness toward minority players in their respective communities. Would that be enough? Is that the middle ground, or is that enough?
It's a start, but this is taking too long.
Yeah.
How about this? Every single team has police officers that protect the individual teams. Those police officers are with those teams all throughout the season. How about bringing them out for the coin toss? How about showing a shaking of hands between the police and the players right at the coin toss of the NFL games? Let's start there. Let's just do something. Let's take some type of first step in the direction of unity, because right now all we're seeing is players kneeling during the national anthem, and that's the narrative. It's becoming a disrespect for the country and an avoidance of the issues that they're kneeling for in the first place. And we need to take a step forward and put some action on the table, not just sitting down or kneeling during the national anthem. It's not working.
Chris Valletta, thank you very, very much. Some very sound ideas. They're going to go nowhere, Chris, but they're very sound ideas nevertheless. No, I kid you. Thank you very much for taking the time.